Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's May 21st. This will be our chart lesson for today, and believe it or not, this is going to wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Fridays, and just to go ahead and get this out of the way to make sure we don't forget, Monday is actually Memorial Holiday, so no trading on Monday. The market will be closed. So we won't pick back up till Tuesday. So it's a long weekend. I hope everybody, hopefully we'll get some good weather. Weather's been a little better around here. I haven't looked at the weekend weather, but it'd be nice to get out and play around the golf if possible, or do whatever the rest of you like to do outside. I know we've been kind of cooped up with this virus thing. Hopefully where you're at, things are opening back up. They are around here. It's still slow, but things are opening back up. So I'm looking forward to a long weekend. I'm probably going to take a little trip and get away for a couple of days. So may get a chance to take a golf trip. We'll just have to see. But anyway, no trading on Monday, and I'll probably close up early on Friday too. So um, depending on what the weather's like Friday and whether whether we end up going somewhere or not, I may upload something Friday and or do something that I'll set to actually upload on Saturday or something like that. We'll just have to see. But anyway, I hope everybody has a great long extended weekend, and let's get to the chart lesson. I've got the blank one up here. It's been up here a few minutes, so anybody wanting to see that should have had a chance to see it by now. And here's the one that matters. And I'll be honest with you, this was a hard trading day, especially there was some pretty good, fairly good movement up until about 11 o'clock. And this was just looks like everybody's already left for the weekend, the long weekend. So when you get in these really tight congestion area, you just can't really trade this. It's really difficult to trade it. And so really from lunchtime, I mean, there's not much volume there, not any movement. You can tell everybody just took the day off. It looks like. So I guess most of the banks and the bankers and all are probably taking off early. So the big institutions that actually moved the market or didn't do any much buying or selling today. There was one little nice sell-off right here, but you couldn't really catch it. So it was really difficult. And again, a lot of my signal bars are really iffy. It's because, and the reason is because you're having to enter out of all these little congestion areas, and you just a lot of times you don't get setups out of those things. So if you didn't get a lot of setups or you didn't see a lot of trades today, I marked a lot of green ones because there's a lot of these are trades I would like in a lot of cases, or they're just a little bit aggressive. But so we'll just have to talk about them as we get to them. But it's probably not going to take long today. I always say that, and then I end up having the longest video yet. So we'll try to keep it short and sweet. So I'm going to back on out where you guys can see it. Guys and gals, I should say. I know we've got a little bit of both, so don't want to leave the ladies out. But early on, we had this trend working up, and generally when you don't get much of a correction, you just go sideways back to the trend line. That is generally means the trend's fairly strong. And really early on, we were down here in this range, and this was a breakout. And the trend line was well confirmed before we came back to here. But anyway, 7 o'clock came right in here somewhere on this little bounce. And unfortunately, I just don't get a setup on my chart. You got that bar, which is not very good, and it's right into this resistance too. So you don't want to enter into that. So even if you had a good bar here, I doubt you want to go long. And we pushed up and made a lower high, and looks like we're going to turn down, and we bounce there again. But look at that bar, and it still closes below the resistance. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just shoots out of there. So, but notice what we got going on here. I basically treated this like a double bottom, and your first entry and your second entry. So it looks a lot like a failed second entry short, but regardless, it's a second entry long. Look at that new high, first entry. It tries to go lower, and you made that low. You test it once, you test it twice. It's a second entry long. It's a pretty good bar. You got plenty of room. So that's a fairly decent trade. And then we end up breaking or going higher. Really, you wouldn't have this would have just been resistance here on the new high, and on a trend that's not that. I mean, you don't want to be getting long right into that, but it's still not that critical. There's actually a higher low right here that you could have taken. You should have already been in here, but you actually could have entered here, and I forgot to mark that one. Let's go ahead and mark that one too. But you could have entered there. I mean, the preference is to enter here on the second entry, but this is a higher low, and it did come back and test that again, and it holds. And so if you want to go long right above that, as long as you got enough room to get out before here, I don't have any problem with entering there either. So we run up, make a new high, and then you just back up and you get another couple of leg move back to the, and that's definitely moving down. It's still a little congestive right there. And this is so tempting. It actually broke lower and turned and went out the other side. It's really tempting to go long there, but by the time this bar finishes or breaks above here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 in a row, and 2 of them have no bodies, and you got some resistance across there. You can see it's acting as support and resistance. That's just a dangerous entry, and it's a shame because look at it go. But you can't worry about that. That's what most people do. They'll see this trade go off without them. And so when it comes back here the next time, even though it's not a great setup, they'll try to take that. Because they said, well, I missed it last time being conservative, and then they try to take it this time, and boom, it fails. So I know at least 1 or 2 people went long right there. You got a little trend channel working right there, and you're inside of it. That's your first break, then you get a new low. And really, this is where your second entry triggers, so that would have just been a first entry. But those 2 bars sideways, really 3, and that one's a perfectly neutral bar with no body. That's too dangerous. So you might, actually I like that for a short, because I guarantee you off that key entry point, a lot of people probably went long, and you can see how it rockets down real quick. So I like that for a short, and you really could almost mark this red. And I just don't like to mark it green because there's too many new people and too many people try to pick tops, and every time somebody sends me a chart, they're trying to get short all up in here, all the way up, and they wonder why they can't get a trade. And then they're trying to get long all the way down, and they're doing it just backwards. So I'm very hesitant to mark anything that's counter trend, but that is a trap right there, right off that key entry point. When it breaks high, when it broke higher and turned, it instantly ran down the other way and went right out the other side. I like going short right there, and that's one of the quickest, easiest moves, and you could get a quick runner for 3 or 4 or 5 points out of that, and that's a nice setup right there. And then notice what happens. We actually had a break and a new low, and then we tried to go higher, and we trapped people out, and you just create this little trap to the short side now. And this serves 2 purposes. First of all, there's a second entry long right there, and you're a long way away from the EMA, and you can pretty much see 2 legs down right there. It's probably not a measured leg because this second leg's not as big, but really you'd probably want to measure that from there, and if you do, it probably is close to a measured leg. It's actually a little more. So, and that's a great signal bar, but you see I think there's enough room to get out on that trade. Your entry would have been 64.25, and the exit's 65, or is that 66? That's 65. Now you would have had a loser right there, right? Did I do my math right? Let me do that one more time. 64.25 to 65. Yep, you don't have enough room there, so you would have got burned right there. But when it just makes that little dot jog lower and then turns back up, that's a great chance to, if it breaks higher, you're going to have a lot of shorts trapped right there, and you've trapped out all the longs right here. And so this trap serves 2 purposes. It traps out all the people that got long suddenly exit right here, so it traps them out. And then a lot of people will get short right here, and it traps them in. And that's what and notice how it runs back up. It gets a little momentum and runs back up. So I like entering there. It's a little aggressive, but you'll see this turns out to be kind of a repeat pattern several times a day. And if you notice that from that point on, I probably wouldn't be afraid to mark those blue. Here, this is another one right here. It's basically the same thing, right side by side. You get that. It actually didn't break higher here, but it's still the same general pattern. And it's another great entry right there. And then it even kind of does it again right here. But notice what happens here. You run up, you get a first entry, you get a second entry. Well, it doesn't fail until it breaks above this bar. And then we also made a little test it once. And you come back and test it a couple more times. So there's a double test there. So I like going long there. You got enough room to get out on that one. And notice you didn't get a whole lot of extra. So there's a higher low here, but it's right back into the resistance. And you get a little failed breakout up here. Unfortunately, that bar is a little too neutral and it's a little too big. If I had a bearish bar, that's the trade. If you had a good setup right here, that's the trade of the day, because that gets you into this and you can ride it all the way down. And otherwise, you don't really get a chance to enter that trade. It's not a good setup at all. So if you this was the gimme right here if you had a good setup. But as you can see my chart, nothing. And I had to just watch this go. And it runs down and you try to go higher once, then you try to go higher twice, and when that failed, you might go short right there. It is off, it looks like a spiking channel. It is off a little key entry point. Runs on down. And I actually got this trend line, this channel, by drawing it off these lows here and dragging this over. And lo and behold, it turns down right there at it. But again, I don't get a good setup there. But you may take this one just because it's a failed second entry long. And you do have, this was a pretty strong move. You first break and you get one leg down, then you get a second leg down and it reverses. But again, this is a strong move, so you don't want to be looking for any longs in here. So the only one you might take is this one because it's a failed second entry short. Notice that low, first entry and then second entry, and you're looking for prices to come back to here. So you may take that one, but then you get this inside bar with a matching high. That's not a good sign. So you can't really take that one, and then there's no other entry until you get a breakout here and a confirmation of that trend line. It doesn't really confirm it because that's just the second touch, but with having drawn it off this side and drug it up there, with it turning down perfectly at it on a failed breakout, that's another one. If I had a good signal bar right there, that's the second trade of the day, because you get the same thing. You're guaranteed a runner on these, both of those, and I don't get to catch either one of them. I just don't have a good setup, and so I can't mark them. I can't take them. And as much as I'd like to break the rules and say, hey, I'm going to take this because it's at that key entry point, you just can't do it. Because what will happen is you'll get trapped and something bad will happen to you, and then you'll wonder why the trade failed. So you got to be extremely careful. And as much as I hated missing that trade, and you see, you measure that first leg right here and bring it over, your measured moves all the way down to right here, and we pretty much made a perfect measured move and then went a little further and bounced. We did that a lot today. You'd make your low and then it would make another quick jog down, and that we see that all through the day today. But anyway, there's a little lower high here, and that's a fairly bearish bar. So you may just get a quick measured leg down. It's a little aggressive. We're not quite back to the EMA though, but as strong as this has been down, it may take another swing to get back to the EMA. So still a pretty good correction, still a really good signal bar. So you may take that one. I'd much rather wait on a second entry. Then you finally get a little second entry here on a failed, it's congestive too, and it's like a little failed breakout. So you can, but it turns down right at that key entry point. Go short one tick under that, and it looks like you're going to get stopped out, but that's why we put our stop where we do. And finally you get a little run down here. And this is, notice there's a move up, a move back down, a move up. It is 2 legs back to the trend line as well in the EMA. And again, there's a second entry short over here, but look at my signal bar. I just don't have any good signal bars today. And it runs on down, comes back, turns down at that. We actually get a close outside there. And notice you get another pull back to the trend line. But as you get away from the EMA, I can't tell you how often I see people entering short way down here. And you can't do that. Even though you could have probably entered right there and scalped out, that's just luck. Don't take those trades. When you start to get away from the EMA, look how long it's been since we've touched the EMA. We're way overdue. So way down here, don't be taking these shorts, especially at the very low. This is the low of the day. Don't ever enter into that, because look what happens. It doesn't go but a few ticks and it turns. Maybe you got lucky and got enough this time, but I can tell you that right there, trying to go short right there, that's almost as bad as counter trend trading, trying to go short 2 or 3 ticks off the low of the day, especially after a break and a couple of legs down. So you just can't take that trade. If anything, you might I'd rather see you try to ride that back to here. But again, you shouldn't be trying to go long on a strong trend like that either. So there's not really any longs here. Then you make your correction here. And I know a few people entered here as well. I think there was a second entry. Well, mine doesn't have it, but several of you had a first entry and then a second entry, and mine has a second entry right here, and it does take off. But look at that signal bar again, and you're kind of working down, and that's really congestive. It's a real weak move down. There's actually a couple of legs there, you can see them, but it's just as much sideways. You could have easily just drawn your line sideways. And so again, no entry. But notice that low, and you try to go lower once, twice, you bounce right off the EMA. If it breaks higher, that's a failure. So that turns out to be a pretty good trade. Then we're just in a range here. Notice that high, and you come back, you try to go high. You go up once, and then there's a second entry long with a nice bullish bar at the low, plenty of room. Then it runs back to the high and gives you a nice bearish bar. And that was probably the best setup on my chart all day right there. And look at it go. And you get 2 legs down. And this is one, we didn't quite come back and test the breakout, and we didn't really come back and test the EMA, so I'm leery of that one. But it's just not enough correction. Usually you'll get 2 legs, so you can't mark it. But then we bounce down here. This had been the overnight low from way over here. So if prices bounce there and way away from the EMA, that's probably a good chance to enter. And look at, that's a fairly bullish bar way away. And so you may go long right there. I marked it green because it could easily tick higher and trap you out and then go up. That's what happens a lot. And I know it happened to some of you today because I saw your charts. And you're working up, and then you get that attempt to go higher that fails. And that bar is, I mean, this is close to being green because I'm not crazy about that signal bar, but it still closes in its lower third. So you could take that trade. It's just, it's not perfect, but it is a lower high. And we just kind of chop back down and then rock it up. And this is actually congestion again. It's not really yet when I entered, but by the time it gets back over here, you can see that it's, oops. You can see that there's congestion there. So you might treat that like a little breakout, break lower. And there's actually 2 clear legs down there. So that's another one that I mean, there's a bunch of possibilities today. They're just a little aggressive. And that does turn out to be a nice move. Look at it go. And then you come right back to the highs. But again, that's your signal bar. That's just an inside bar. You make a lower high here, but it's right back into the EMA, and then we're just going sideways again. And there's just no chance to enter in there. Same thing here. There's no real chance to enter. And then finally we break out of this one. My line's not all the way across there. Let me just do this. Well, I can't quite get that line right. But anyway, you get back in the range up here and you try to go lower twice, and you still got enough room to get out. So you may take that one. It's still a little congestive here, but this is really where your highs were up here. So you got plenty of room. We run up here, and again, it sells off. Again, you don't want to enter in that stuff right there. By that time, your line would have been down, maybe like right there. So you can't enter there, and you get the failed breakout, but you don't get a setup there, and there it goes again. Does bounce down here at the line one more time. There's a high or low here. The problem is you still got this trend line in play. But you get a first entry, second entry, and that's fairly bearish. It's just not bearish enough for my taste. I'm inclined to think long here because we bounced here a few times. So really you could have gone long here and then you could have gone short here, but usually when you do one, it's really hard to be married to this direction and then suddenly switch to this one. And so I don't recommend that. I usually say take it, and when you get stopped out, just sit aside and reevaluate. But you could have really taken either one of those. The better one's probably to the long side because this is looking like a range and this is a support. And we just came off of it. So that's a good enough reason why you might have been better off to take this trade and just sit idle. But then we get that repeat pattern. We push down, start going sideways and break higher, and then we make that last little move down and run a bunch of stops, and then boom, off it goes. And that takes you in the 2 o'clock hour. But the good thing about this one, you could have ridden this a little ways. I mean, even if you rode it back up to here, let's say you got up here in the 29.50 area from 43. So that's a seven point move there. And if you can get just 5 points of that, you did pretty good. So again, this was not an easy day because there's periods of time where you couldn't do any. I mean, really, from noon on, there's maybe one trade here I would mark blue or red. That's a long time to sit and get nothing. Now, there's a few trades in here, and you might have had a couple of these where your signal bar looked okay and where mine doesn't. If that's the case, hopefully you got some longs off of that. But anyway, I've been able to get this done in 23 minutes, which I didn't think it would take that long with no more trades than we had today. But I'm not going to beat around the bush on it. I'm going to wrap it up so I can get this uploaded and get it up at a decent hour today for y'all. I'd like to have this up by 5 or 6 at the latest every day, but lately it's taken so long. It's almost, sometimes it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock almost before I get it posted. So I'm going to get it up here today. So I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you've had a good week. I hope you have a long extended holiday break, and you need to get a break. I know when you're new, you want to trade as much as you can, and it's all exciting and all, but take a break. It's always good to get a break and come back refreshed. So I mean, I love these long weekends personally. It gives me a chance to get a break and so forth. So I would ask everybody if you would, kind of try to hold off as much as you can on your trading questions over the weekend, just so I can kind of take a holiday break. If you got just a quick question that's important, send it to me, but don't send me a whole chart to review and a bunch of trades and things like that, or anything too complicated. I'd appreciate it. But hope y'all have a great weekend. We'll be back on Tuesday, so no trading Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.